Electric scooters are very general terms. Some people say electric scooter and they're referring to the lines that they see all through downtown. Somebody else can be referring to an electric scooter and it's more like a moped. It really depends on what kind of vehicle that you're operating in Florida to determine whether you need a driver's license to operate it. As far as the accident is concerned, you still have an obligation to follow traffic laws. Depending on the facts of the accident, that'll determine who's at fault. It's very similar to a car crash or a pedestrian accident. More than anything, the injuries tend to be more severe. Generally, if you're in a motor vehicle, you're retained or restrained rather with a seatbelt. Scooter, you don't have that luxury. Typically, if you're involved in an accident with a scooter, your damages are going to be more severe. That will change the scope in which the case is going to be worked and ultimately making sure you get the medical treatment that you need. But the law doesn't necessarily differentiate too much between an electric scooter versus motor vehicle accident as opposed to a vehicle versus vehicle accident. Especially in those situations, if you're involved in an accident and the motor vehicle is one at fault, you're going to be treated as a pedestrian in reality. When you're involved in an accident in Florida, whether you're a pedestrian or in a motor vehicle or on a scooter, the first $10,000 of medical coverage is generally going to come from personal injury protection coverage, PIP. That's mandatory in all Florida motor vehicle policies, depending on whether you have your own vehicle outside of the scooter, or if you don't, then potentially you can qualify for PIP benefits through the at-fault vehicle. If the scooter was at fault, if you do have motor vehicle with insurance coverage, let's say at your house, your motor vehicle policy may provide coverage. There are certain policies that have exemptions. Even in those situations though, negligence, it's kind of a balancing act, right? You think you may be at fault, it's really a question of, well, how much fault do you really have? Fault's made out of 100%, and let's say you're 25% at fault, you're still going to be able to make a recovery in Florida. Even if you're 50% at fault, you can still make a recovery in Florida. If you're involved in an electric scooter accident, it's important that you collect evidence just like you were in a motor vehicle accident. Photos of the scooter, damage to the vehicle, photos of the surrounding area. If it occurred on a sidewalk or on the street, try to get wide shots to know exactly where the accident happened. If you did rent the scooter on the street, whether it's a Lime or a Bird, try to obtain your receipt. That may come into play and be important. If there were witnesses that saw what happened, maybe came to you, checked you out, make sure you were okay, try to get that person's name, phone number, address even. Call law enforcement. Very important to try to get a police report. It doesn't always happen in Florida, unfortunately. It's important to at least attempt, and even if law enforcement comes, get that witness's information, because I can't tell you how many times I talk to clients and they tell me 2-3 people came up to me and I get the crash report a few weeks later and there's no mention of it. And sometimes that can make or break a case. The sooner you get in contact with an attorney, the better the outcome of your case can be. We're able to communicate with the insurance companies. We're able to open up the claims and make sure that there are no inconsistencies between what happened and what relates to the insurance companies. We're also able to make sure that your injuries are addressed with proper medical attention. We're happy to discuss with you your certain scenario and discuss with you whether you have a case.